It's 1959 at Lexington, where other children are playing in the playground. Lucinda, however, stands alone, staring up at the sky as if witnessing something mysterious. Miss Taylor calls the children inside, but Lucinda doesn't respond, fixated on whatever she sees. Once inside, Miss Taylor announces that for the school's official opening day tomorrow, Lucinda's idea has been selected by Principal Clark. They will be holding a burial ceremony for a time capsule. Miss Taylor tells the children to draw what they think the future will look like, and their drawings will be placed inside the capsule to be opened 50 years later. As time for writing ends, Miss Taylor instructs everyone to hand in their work. However, Lucinda continues writing a strange sequence of numbers. Miss Taylor takes the paper from her. The next day, the burial event of the time capsule begins at William Dawes School. The children bury the capsule, set to be opened in 50 years in 2009. Miss Taylor notices that Lucinda is no longer where she had been standing. The school starts searching for her. Later, Miss Taylor, holding a flashlight in the dark, descends into the basement to find Lucinda. She is horrified to see Lucinda with blood on her hands, staring at them in fear. Miss Taylor notices the numbers Lucinda had been scratching into a wooden door with her bloodied fingers. The same sequence from the paper Miss Taylor had taken from her earlier. Fast forward 50 years to the present day, when MIT professor John Kusler calls his son Caleb over to see something on the telescope while drinking whiskey at their house. They talk about the possibility of other planets like Earth, and John reflects sadly on the loss of his wife in a fire. Caleb runs off to his room to watch a discovery program, but not before reminding John about the 50th anniversary of the school. He insists that John must attend the event the next day. Both John and Caleb are affected by the grief of losing Caleb's mother. John teaches at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. After his lecture, John chats with his friend Phil as they walk down the street. Suddenly, John remembers the time capsule ceremony at Caleb's school and apologizes to Phil before rushing off to attend. At the event, Caleb waves to his father, and John smiles at the sight of him singing with the other children at William Dawes Elementary School. The teachers then call out Miss Taylor, who had been there at the time of the time capsule's burial. She hands out the drawings of the children, and Caleb receives the paper with Lucinda's sequence of numbers. Caleb, hearing whispers, spots a strange man standing in the bushes. When he looks back, the man is gone. Caleb, who has a hearing problem, wears hearing aids and tells John about the strange noises. He then mentions that a friend had invited him to a sleepover, and John agrees to let him go. Later, John discovers the sequence of numbers on Caleb's paper. He tells Caleb to return the paper to the school, as it is school property. However, Caleb's remark about the numbers making sense sparks John's curiosity. At home, while John is drinking whiskey and thinking about Caleb, he accidentally places his drink on the paper with the sequence numbers. The glass forms a circle around some of the numbers. John, intrigued, writes the numbers on a whiteboard, and upon closer inspection realizes that one of the dates, September 11, 2001, is marked. After researching the date online, John discovers that it is the day of the September 11th terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers in New York City, which resulted in 2,996 deaths. The numbers on the paper match the disaster exactly, and John is shocked. He begins to investigate further, writing all the numbers on the board, and finding that they seem to predict every major catastrophic event of the past 50 years, along with the number of deaths. John highlights the dates of the tragedies in red and the death tolls in blue. He notices that some numbers are left uncircled, which may predict future events. After dropping Caleb off at school, Caleb asks John if he's feeling sick because of his strange behavior. John brushes it off, saying he just has a lot of work to do. John tries explaining the numbers to Phil, but Phil doesn't believe him, dismissing it as a prank. John insists that the numbers predict future tragedies. Phil still isn't convinced. John visits Miss Taylor to ask about Lucinda, and she tells him that Lucinda was a troubled girl. She recalls that on the day of the time capsule's burial, Lucinda disappeared, only to be found later in a closet, scratching numbers into a wooden door with her fingers. John shows Miss Taylor the paper Caleb received and asks if he can meet Lucinda. Miss Taylor informs him that Lucinda died many years ago from a drug overdose. John tries alerting the police about the predicted event, but while watching Caleb play in the yard, he notices strange-looking men in a car approaching him. One of the men rolls down the window and hands Caleb a smooth black stone. As John rushes outside, the men drive off. He warns Caleb to stay away from strangers. John searches online for more information on Lucinda Embry and receives a call from his sister Grace. She urges him to meet their father, but John refuses. He has a complicated relationship with his parents due to their religious beliefs and his own atheism. John heads to pick up Caleb, but is delayed by traffic. While using his car's GPS system to find an alternate route, he notices that the coordinates on the system match the locations of past disasters. John realizes that the uncircled numbers predict the locations of future disasters. He stops the car and talks to the police. Suddenly, a plane crashes near his car, killing many people. John tries to help, but it's too late. At home, Grace tells Caleb to go to bed. John hears on the news that 81 people died in the plane crash, the exact number predicted by the paper. Caleb is angry with John for not explaining why he's been acting strange. Later, Phil visits John, having heard about the incident. He tells John it's a coincidence, but John insists the predictions are coming true. He is still shaken from seeing the crash and not being able to save the victims. That night, Caleb is awakened by a strange man who shines a bright light toward the window. Caleb approaches and looks outside, where he sees a horrifying fire raging through a jungle with animals burning alive. Terrified, Caleb starts screaming and crying. John rushes to his son, pulling him into a tight hug. He also sees the man in the jungle, but when John rushes outside to follow him, the mysterious figure vanishes without a trace. John takes Caleb with him and tracks down Lucinda's daughter, Diana, and Diana's daughter, Abby. Diana and Abby are at a museum, and John tells Caleb to stay with Abby while he talks to Diana. Later, sitting in a restaurant, John explains to Diana that their meeting isn't a coincidence. He needs to discuss her mother, Lucinda Embry. John shares everything he knows about the strange sequence of numbers and asks if Lucinda had any special powers. But Diana becomes confused and angry, clearly not wanting to talk about her mother. She leaves the restaurant, taking Abby with her. John tries to explain that his son is involved in something dangerous and pleads for her help, but she refuses. John later hears on the news about a terrorist plot in New York City. Meanwhile, his house is surrounded by strange men wearing black trench coats. John enters the coordinates from Lucinda's letter into his computer to check the location of the next predicted disaster. He tries to alert the police that an attack may happen between Lafayette Street and Worth Street. John leaves Caleb with his sister Grace, instructing her to take care of him. John then heads to the location in an attempt to prevent the disaster. At the train station, he spots a suspicious man with a bag and thinks he might be the bomber. However, when John confronts him, he discovers the man is just a petty thief who stole DVDs. Moments later, a train is improperly switched and crashes into another at the station, causing immense destruction. John emerges from the wreckage. When John returns home, he finds Diana sitting outside with Abby. Diana tells him that Lucinda often talked about October 19th. As they drive, they share their sad stories. Diana and John with the kids reach an abandoned house where Lucinda once lived. They go inside and leave the children in the car. Diana tells John that the last letter Lucinda wrote, which looked like 33, is actually double E. Abby also used to write backwards. They find many newspapers in Lucinda's room detailing incidents she had predicted. John also notices a strange picture of the final day with a large bright object in the center. He discovers the stone Caleb received from the mysterious men. While outside, Caleb and Abby see the strange men approaching them. John and Abby run to the car to protect the kids. Caleb tells John that the men spoke to them, and Abby mentions that they said she and Caleb could go with them willingly. This revelation suggests that Abby, like Caleb and Lucinda, has the ability to hear voices. John confronts one of the men, pointing a gun at him. The man turns, opens his mouth, and a bright light blinds John for a moment before he disappears. Diana cries, fearing for Abby's safety, and John hugs her to comfort her. Abby shows John a drawing which is identical to one Lucinda had made and hung in her room. John realizes that the final prediction must involve the sun. He takes Diana and the children to an observatory, where his research on superflares aligns with abnormal levels of solar radiation. John predicts that these flares will destroy the Earth. He shares this information with Phil and realizes that there is no way to stop the catastrophe. Diana suggests they go underground to escape the disaster. As they pack, Caleb hears whispers. John notices a family picture in a necklace and calls his parents, urging them to get underground. His father responds that it won't matter because even underground, the heat from the flares will still reach them. John then sees Caleb writing the same numbers Lucinda had written on the wooden door at school. They all head to the school where John takes the door home. He tells Diana they aren't going underground. He writes down the final set of numbers and discovers the location, but when he returns, he finds that Diana and the children are gone. At a gas station, Caleb calls his father, and John tries to convince Diana to take the children to Lucinda's trailer instead of the caves. He insists that the caves won't protect them, as the flare will penetrate miles underground and kill everyone. Meanwhile, the strange men steal Diana's car with the kids inside. John chases them, but the car is hit by a truck, killing Diana. In the chaos, John notices the date, October 22nd, and realizes Lucinda predicted Diana's death and the final disaster. John reaches Lucinda's trailer and follows the path of the black stones. He sees the strange man again, and then Caleb and Abby, holding a rabbit, tell John that they were told Diana is in a safe place, meaning they already knew she wouldn't make it. The children are taken by the strange men. John is shocked to see a bright spacecraft descending from the sky. The orb opens, and Caleb tells John they are being taken to a safe place away from the catastrophic event. John realizes that the aliens are only taking Abby and Caleb, not the adults. Caleb initially protests, not wanting to leave his father, but John convinces him that he must go with Abby to be saved. John says an emotional goodbye as the aliens reveal their true forms, bright, glowing bodies. The orb returns to the ship, and hundreds of other ships can be seen leaving Earth, taking many children like Caleb and Abby to safety. John collapses and later awakens to see an orange glow in the sky. As he drives, he witnesses the flare destroying everything, and chaos erupts around him. He finds Phil, holding his wife, and arrives at his family, where they embrace just before the flare incinerates everything. The large spaceship then drops Caleb, Abby, and the other children onto a beautiful new planet. The children will now have a chance to start over. And I give you the chance to start over with a nice movie recap, my friend. Just click my recommendations on the right to continue your binge. Don't forget to subscribe for future uploads, and as always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon.